This is the first InDesign demonstration. We will be working on the first assignment, which is the biographical sketch. What you'll need to do is begin by starting up the InDesign program. I am actually using CS4, as that is what my system has. Very little will change between the two programs, CS4 and CS5. There are a couple of tools that will not appear in my demonstration that you should see on yours. Those two tools we really won't use. I think that's the gap tool and the page tool, page selection tool. In order to begin the biographical sketch, we will open a new document. Once your program loads, you may either go to File, New Document, or with the welcome screen, click on Document, enter the values for the letter size document, or select the letter preset under page size. Don't have facing pages selected at this point, and don't worry about master text frame. We will change the margins to 1, as that will be the margin guide we will need. And there are actually more options that we may use later, which are under the more options, the bleed and the slug. At this point you don't need a bleed, so let's say OK to that. And once it loads, we now have a document which has the edge of the document, which is the 8.5 by 11, and then the red line or pink line is the actual margin guide. So we will go to the Type tool, click, hold, drag, and have the text box run between the margins. So we now have a text box with an insertion point. Now you may begin typing, or if you have already typed in text in, let's say, Word or Text Edit on your Macintosh, you may simply import it by going to File, Place, and this will allow you to navigate to your drive. And the drive I'm using is the LaCie Mac. You may use your Documents folder, or you may use another USB drive, as I am doing now. Here we have ART205BIO1.txt. You might have a DOC, a doc, or DOCX should work in CS5. And just double click to accept that. And we now have all of the text we need. And we will, in a little bit, we'll be doing a spell check to see if there are any misspelled words or what have you. In order to change the format or alignment of your type, centered, left, things like that, you have to highlight the copy before you change it. Notice that when you are in the Type tool and you have something selected, it will tell you what the current dimensions are. In the example I gave you, uploaded, in the Moodle section, I believe I use times for everything, but you're certainly welcome to use a different font if you choose. I believe that the header and my name were probably between 18 and 24 point. I'm not looking at that original document. So I'll just say 24 point. And I need to align it center. And with any of the tools we have, if you hover over them, it will tell you what that tool does. So that was align center. Biographical sketch, in the example I gave you, was a bold times, and my name was simply italic. And again, that's below the font name. Now, if you did want to change the font of your name, you simply click on the window that says Times and go through that. Trebuchet is a nice font, and let's see what we have. Bold italic might be kind of nice, and I can make it larger. So that's entirely up to you. If you don't want to make it a standard size, simply use the up and down arrow next to the point size to change that. Leading, now the space, notice how my name is far below the biographical sketch line. If I want to, I can bring that up simply by choosing a different leading or line space. So I'm happy with that right now. So let's highlight all of the copy, and in my example I indented each paragraph. So looking at the top, when I have all of the copy selected, you may see a left indent, and then a first line left indent. In this instance, I would make it about 1/4 of an inch. Now, if for some reason these do not show up, look under the Type menu under Paragraph, and you'll notice that they appear here as well. It does depend on what your work environment is set at. Mine is currently at Essentials. Generally, the paragraph features appear there. Sometimes they don't. It depends how it has been preset. But you may choose that first line indent at 1/4 of an inch. One thing that in graphic design is usually considered to be appropriate is that we do not indent the first paragraph. So let's take that out in this instance. So I just, again, highlighted anywhere in that first paragraph. You don't actually have to highlight the entire paragraph to take out the indent. Another thing we might want to do, and if you'll see my example, there's some space between each paragraph. Rather than hitting a return, I'm going to actually use the space after feature. Again, that's on the paragraph window, or it is in the control bar at the top. So let's make that 1/8 of an inch, or 0.125. And I will say this at this point: if your measurement's not showing up as 1IN, all you have to do is go to InDesign Preferences, Units, and Increments. And when this pops up, you can change your ruler units, horizontal and vertical, to inches. We will change those later for an example, so you will need to know how to do that at some point anyway. Now, I am going to highlight all of the copy, and I believe I used 14 point type here, so let's change all this to 14. And I also used, if you notice, justified with the last line left in my example I uploaded. And then the last thing that I want to do as far as formatting the type is I want to take the hyphenations out. Now notice I've been able to format the paragraph from the control bar, but in order to change the hyphenation, I do have to have the paragraph window open. Again, yours might actually have a hyphenation button appear, but mine does not. Click that, and now all of the hyphenations have disappeared. Now sometimes you get extra returns. If you look at my example, I've noticed that it looks like I have a return that needs to be taken out here. So I just did a deletion. And at this point everything looks good, except if you'll notice wherever I have an apostrophe, because I used an IBM to create the type, I now have an odd character. Instead of an apostrophe, I have an odd character. So what I'm going to do is highlight that character and go to Edit, Copy, and then go to Edit, Find Change, and then I'll actually paste it. Now what this is going to allow me to do is change it to an apostrophe, and rather than selection, I want to say make this change to all of the document. So let's change all, and it tells me there were 3 instances that I changed, and I will say done. And now I want to, let's see, look over here, and I believe all those are changed. The last thing I want to do, you might have done a spell check before, but oftentimes things change if you used a special function out of IBM or what have you. We're going to click on Check Spelling under Edit, Spelling, Check Spelling, and it appears everything appears to be fine. So we'll say done to that. Now at this point, you may print it if you have a printer selected. Oh, one thing I did want to show you. I said a little bit earlier in the example that in the lesson that the first paragraph is usually not indented in graphic design. What you can do is you can add a drop cap. Now notice here we have a drop cap, number of lines. So I can change the capital L in let to occupy 2 lines if I wish. I may also change the entire word of let to be all cap, and then the space after helps it move out. So you have your line count and you have the character count. So I'm going to reduce this back to just the 1 character. And let's say that I'm happy with that. You can go to File, Print. I always do a file save first. So let's do a file save. Let's go to my C drive. InDesign. I actually have a Bio one already saved. I'm just going to save over it originally. And if you ever do that, if you need to make changes and you don't want to keep the original copy, simply say replace when you save over the other file. Now you again may print. Here you'll select your printer, but for turning in your work, you'll need to do a file export as a PDF, Adobe PDF, and make sure that it has a PDF after that. Save it. I already have one, so I'm going to replace it. And then do high print quality, and then do marks and bleeds. Usually I like to put just the crop marks, but you may also put the registration marks. So I will say export that, and it may take it a moment. And it's done. So if the name at the top is grayed out, that means you'll need to save it again. Or if you go to File and you see the save is dark, that means it needs to be saved. Otherwise, you may close it by clicking the red button or go to File Close. And that concludes this biography example.